Hey, beautiful. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I'm so excited to be here with you. I love listening to your show, so being a guest on your show right now is like, feels good.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners? They're going to be so
Yes.
excited to hear you.
Yay. So my name is Ayesha, also known as Oath Oracle. I'm a business astrologer, a business and wealth energetics coach, and I love working with visionaries, healers, leaders, mystics, and artists to create prosperity and financial freedom with their soul purpose work with the greatest magnetism possible by working with our energetic blueprint.
Amazing. Yeah, so juicy. And your horoscopes and like all your content on Instagram is amazing. Like, so helpful to know when there are transits happening, what's going on in the sky, in the cosmos, and why we're feeling all the things that we're feeling. And I think that that's so powerful to bring into your business as well, because having an understanding of your emotions, but also what's going on that's part of a bigger plan and is happening for you, not to you, can just be so empowering, just to know all of that information. So I want to zero straight in on business and how we can use astrology to understand our mission, our purpose, our dharma, what we're doing in our businesses. And the first thing that I knew to ask you was about the North Node, because when I found out about the North Node, my brain was just like, pew, pew, like breakthroughs happening, explosions happening in my brain. And I was like, wow. And it's something that I refer back to probably every week in my business, and right now being in my Saturn return. So, can you tell us a little bit about, what is the North Node? What's the way to best understand how that would affect each of us?
I love this topic. I love the topic of the North Node so much. And it's something that's been really life-changing for myself. And just like you, it's something I refer back to probably daily. And I've literally been studying my own nodes for 18 years, like not exaggerating. It's a lifelong exploration. And the nodes are the North and the South node. So we like to focus on the North node, but it's also very important to understand our South node because that orients our understanding of the North node. So the North and South nodes are nodes of the moon, and what they're indicating is future destiny and past life karma. So the South node is past life karma and its placement. So it's the sign that it's in our birth chart, the house that it's in our birth chart. This is telling a story and expressing past life karmic patterns. So it could have been one past life, it could be an infinite number of past lives where we were living that type of pattern. We were expressing that type of energy. It could have been expressed to excess. We could have been expressed to a point of imbalance in our lives. There could have been lifetimes where the South node, the past life energies, were our destiny, and we were doing it. We were living our best life in that energy. But the reason why it comes as the South node in our birth chart in this lifetime is because there's things about those energies and those patterns and stories that we are resolving. So we're learning about what's in balance. We're learning how to integrate the lessons of the past. And it's also letting us know that's not the path of our greatest evolution anymore. So it's kind of like a comfort zone. We come into life with certain remembrance. Our soul remembers certain things about past lives. So as I know about Amy, your South Node is in Cancer. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the South Node Cancer people have past life experiences of mothering energy, right? Nurturing, mothering, being available for others emotionally, being an emotional backbone, perhaps of a family unit or a community. And it's a water element as well. So being very in the emotion, in the intuition, and in caring and nurturing. When it's in the South Node, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the energies of the divine mother and divine feminine of Cancerian energy. But we want to think about the shadow expressions of that sign because that's going to let us know something about what we came here to learn. So it's not that there's anything wrong with that sign or exploring those energies, even when you have it as your South Node. But what you do want to look out for in your life is being in mothering patterns. So mothering patterns where it's like, oh, I'm almost So your North Node in Capricorn, that's a sign of responsibility, right? And we're going to get to that in a moment. Cancer also is, if we think of a mother, that's a person with a lot of responsibility, and that's a person who loves and cares a lot. But that responsibility is almost more of an emotional responsibility. So a red flag or shadow to look out for with that South Node would be taking responsibility for others' emotions to the detriment of you following your own path and building your own empire and creating your own legacy. So then we understand things about the South Node, and usually that's a really big aha moment for people of like, oh my God, this is this is where this pattern comes from. This is where this knee-jerk reaction comes from. This is why I always fall into the same role, because we tend to gravitate. I mean, we're born with this South Node and we're usually not studying it, right, from a young age at all, right? So we tend to gravitate towards certain roles, situations, jobs, environments, friend groups, where we're perpetuating the same pattern. And it's almost so much of it is unconscious, right? So we find friends who want to be mothered. We find friends who, always need to vent on us and see us as always available, almost as if that is our role, because there's these karmic stories that are playing out in the undercurrent. And when we understand that and we start to realize, okay, this is something I choose because I'm more comfortable with this, right? Like there's a part of me that's more comfortable with this. So it often, in my opinion and my experience, parallels the things that we say, oh, this always happens, or why does this always happen? Or, why do people always treat me like this? Like it usually parallels that because, there's fate and there's free will. So we really have to choose with our free will to understand it is more comfortable for me to do this. Maybe you were someone who was a mother and taken care of financially in a past life, because your North Node's in Capricorn, which is all about building your empire, being a boss, thinking of your ambitions, thinking of your achievements. What do you want to create in the long term? Where mothers are very, very hard workers, but they're very in the now. And it's based on the needs of others, because it's like, it's not, the Capricorn energy is like, I'm in my boardroom, I'm in my office, planning out years in advance, not hardcore planning, but visioning and connecting with a greater vision of like what I want to build. Like I want to be at the top of the mountain goat, right? Where Cancer energy is like, do you have your shoes on? Oh, you're crying. Oh, it's 3 a.m. and you woke up with a nightmare. Like, let me drop everything and care for you, because that's what your soul experienced. So understanding our South Node really is the foundation for understanding our North Node. And our North Node is the path of our evolution. It's usually out of our comfort zone. It's often out of our comfort zone. Maybe your soul has never had that type of life in a past life. Maybe your soul has been craving. Maybe your soul left a certain lifetime and looked and watched it as if on a movie screen and realized, man, I love to be the one that builds that empire. I want to be the one that gets the briefcase and goes out into the big wide world. I want to be the one that's known beyond just my family and known maybe perhaps worldwide, because Capricorn really rules legacy. So the North Node is a path that when we choose to follow the path, or the path of the North Node, I refer to it all the time in my work, because that's the path of our evolution. It's the only path to fulfillment. It, like, in my opinion, is the path to fulfillment. It's the path of quantum leaping, manifesting much faster, because when we choose consciously the path of the North Node and we really are like, yes, sir. That's kind of how I feel about the North Node. Like I do what my North Node says, like to an extreme. And when we follow
yes,
that path,
Daddy.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with that Capricorn energy, it's like you're going from mommy energy to daddy energy. Like you are the daddy energy now. And so when we do that, when we choose to walk that path, as scary as it is, because it's not just like, oh yeah, cool, I'll just walk the North Node path. The presence of the South Node is almost triggering those same qualities for us. So it's almost amplifying it for us. And then that's right before we started recording, or maybe this is part of the podcast, you mentioned that you refer back to it every week.
Yeah.
Your nodes. So it's so interesting, because like we think it's so clear. It's like, oh yeah, follow the North Node and learn the lessons of the South Node, but it's so deep within our karmic imprint and within our soul imprint, that South Node energy. So it's so funny how there's just layers upon layers upon layers of it, and it's never something that is completed. And something else I want to mention to listeners is not to be in an energy of like rejection of the South Node or labeling it as bad. It's really not something bad that we're trying to like destroy or anything like that. So an analogy that I use to help people understand the nodes is, because some astrologers do refer to it as we want to go away. If we want to go towards the South Node, it means we're going away from I'm sorry, I'm
The
mixing
other
up my
way,
words.
yeah.
If we want to go towards the north node, then that means we're going away from the south node. So a way that I like to look at it is not that it's something we want to reject or forget about, because, you know, when we reject or repress something, we're actually giving it an energy that it wouldn't otherwise have. So when we think, oh, here's that south node again, and judging it or feeling shame around it, I see it as a garden. So one side of the garden has too much water. It's the plants are overwatered. They can have root rot. They can be drowning in water, and the other side is dry and crumbly. So when we come into life, and we usually unconsciously keep watering that side. And of course, when we're watering that side, both sides are dying. But when we move water from the south node side, the overwatered side, to the north node side, which is the more dry side, both sides actually thrive. So it's not about choosing one or the other. So if someone has their south node in Cancer, for example, and then they're like, oh, wait, does that mean I'm not supposed to be a mother? It's like, no, that's not what it means. But the desires of the south node, this is really important. The desires of the south node are attained by the north node. So when you, Amy, and people with north node and Capricorn go after your goals, your personal goals, the legacy you came here to create, that bigger picture empire, that will be the path that magically and synchronistically leads you into starting a family in the most like aligned, magical way, if that's what you want.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting? Me and my husband have the opposite north and south nodes. And like almost like all his signs are like the opposite signs to what I have, but we're so similar in so many ways. And one time he had an astrology reading, and the astrologist was like, you're going to be the good cop, like the nurturer, and I'm going to be
Oh,
the bad
yes.
cop. I'm going to be like, everyone get your shit together. Come on.
Yes, flipping those gender roles. And yeah, men with the Cancer North Node, it's like nurturing, opening up that emotional wealth. And it's like you're like bringing home the bacon.
Yeah.
Not that he can't bring home the bacon, but it's just, it's not about, it's really not about choosing. And this is something I see people go into a lot when they're first learning about the North Node. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be this and not this. It's really about balance. It's really about just bringing balance to the whole. And that watering that side of the garden, cultivating that side of the garden, it actually makes the other side also thrive. So that's how we get to have it all, really.
Yeah, I really like that metaphor that you've used, because I haven't heard it said like that. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because I think I'm quite a nurturing, quite mothering energy, but I'll bring the tough love. I'm like, come on, we're going. Like, let's do this, you
Yes.
know?
Those South Node experiences prepare us for our North Node destiny, because, you know, someone who is in the Capricorn energy, just as the archetype of Capricorn of like achievement, productivity, success, goals, ambition, without a soft Cancerian energy, which is compassionate, which is the energy of water, which is this feminine energy, that person could become very rigid. So our South Node experiences really actually enrich our North Node expression. And that the path of the North Node, like when we really consciously choose to walk that path, like that's when a lot of things start to change in my own life. When I had been studying my North Node for a long time, but walking the path of the North Node is another story. Just like, you know, integrating what we know consciously and embodying it is a whole journey in itself. And I don't even feel that I'm a master of my nodes whatsoever, even after 18 years of working with them. But when I really was just like, no, I see it here on the page. And that's the beautiful thing with working with charts and working with astrology. Is like, I see it right there. What can I say? That's the reflection of who I am. My higher self built this for me. That's how I see the birth chart. So it's been just such a journey, and it's crazy how fast we can quantum leap when we're really on that North Node path. That's what I experienced, and that's what I observe in my clients all the time.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I'm well down that path. Like I've only just recently hit my Saturn return, but I feel like I'd already done quite a lot of, let's say, unraveling prior to this Saturn return. So with the Saturn return, I mean, people have all these, I guess, understandings or maybe misunderstandings of what it is. I mean, the common sort of myth I think about it is like, oh no, the Saturn return, it's gonna be chaos, it's gonna be shit, like fuck, I gotta survive this. And I have friends who have all sorts of mixed experiences. Like some of my super spiritual friends are like, I loved my Saturn return.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of me wants to ask you, like, is the Saturn return just a big steaming pile of shit, or like what is actually going on, and how can we like ride through it in an empowering way? Because I also sort of have this understanding that it's an opportunity to like sort of step into your next chapter if you choose the initiation.
Oh, the thing with the Saturn return is that if you don't choose the initiation will choose you. And that's have harder experiences with the Saturn return. Saturn is a stickler for the rules. So the archetype of Saturn is the taskmaster, the stern teacher, the sensei, that stern elder figure who really wants us to be our best. And it's a tough love type of energy. But it's also a stickler for the rules. So Saturn, during the Saturn return, things that were not in alignment in our life, and we can understand it deeper by looking at the house that it's in our birth chart, as well as the sign, that area of life in particular, and anything else in life that we have not been living in full alignment with our integrity or what is actually correct and right for us as an individual and a soul, we might have been able to get away with not living in alignment in that area of life for a long time. It might have been fine, just kind of push it aside. And during the Saturn return, it is no longer fine. So Saturn is an energy of karma. So it's like this karmic return of anything that you haven't taken responsibility for, which is truly your responsibility, because Saturn is all about responsibility. It does feel heavy. It really does feel heavy because it's the planet of obligation. But what we're truly obligated to is our life purpose, like our personal life purpose. So sometimes people are taking responsibility, especially givers, anyone who resonates with that being a giver. It's like we can take responsibility for other people's things, and it's actually this like low-key self-sabotage on us, like following our own path of purpose. So the Saturn return is a rite of passage into our true adulthood. We're not adults at 18, we're not adults at 21, we're adults when the Saturn return completes. And I bet that your friends that loved the Saturn return are people who value growth. And I bet the people that have a really hard time are people who prefer certainty, security, and comfort, basically. So it's really about your perspective of it. If something that really motivates you and inspires you and fires you up is being in a state of growth, growing, learning, evolving, being your best version of yourself, then that means that when something like an unhelpful pattern is revealed to you, that's a good thing. It's like, okay, like maybe it's hard to look at this, but I'm so glad I know about this so I can dismantle this thing, which may have been present my entire life, multi-lifetimes, intergenerationally, and like I get to be the one that dismantles this. But if that's not something that excites you and that's something you don't want to look at, the Saturn return is going to make you look at it anyway. So that's why it can be a very difficult time. Now, for me, I just graduated my Saturn return. So I was in the previous Saturn sign of Saturn in Capricorn. And I, as an astrologer, knew about the Saturn return. You know, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. Saturn is currently in Aquarius. So for Amy and people in their Saturn return right now, they have their Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is also the co-ruler of Aquarius. So Saturn was at home in Capricorn, and it's also at home in Aquarius, different energies, but Saturn, its domicile means it's at home in those signs because it rules both Capricorn as well as it's the co-ruler of Aquarius. So I knew that my Saturn return was coming. Everyone was saying about the Saturn in Capricorn transit, daddy's home, right? So I was like, oh, I got this. Like my Mercury's in Capricorn. I have a Capricorn stellium. Like I got this. Ooh, it still threw me for all kinds of loops, all kinds of responsibilities, duties. And it kind of feels, it's a bit of a sensation of we're climbing uphill. It's a bit of that sensation. And it's a bit of a sensation of if you're someone who wants to escape your growth or escape seeing certain things about yourself, it's like you turn here, there's a wall. You try to turn away, there's a wall. You try and run away, there's a wall. Like it doesn't let you off the hook. That's really what it doesn't let you off the hook. So the most empowering way to approach it is seeing that it's there for you. Imagine if you were gifted one of the most high paid, like Olympian coaches ever, who is a total hard ass, but you only got to work with them in this intimate way for this like short period of time until your next Saturn return in your 50s, right? So, or you're close to your 60s. So it's a really special opportunity to get your shit together. But of course, it has plans that are different than our own kind of narrow plans that we have about life. So my advice is to start first of all, learn about your Saturn placement. So learn about the sign that it's in, learn about the house that it's in, and just start cultivating a relationship with it. Reflect on how it's been playing out in your life, because it's always there. Even when we're not in our Saturn return, it's still there, bringing a sense of limitation, restriction, and responsibility to that area of life. Limitation is not something bad. So Saturn really makes me think of the energy of architecture. So if you're building the Golden Gate Bridge, there's a lot of things you can't do. Okay. So if you're building a feat of architecture like the Golden Gate Bridge, there's many things that you cannot do. There's many limitations. And if you make a mistake, that could cost many, many people their lives. But because of this piece of architecture, this like miraculous building, was created with certain limitations in mind, with the understanding and the commitment to the rules that they're confined in when making a bridge. Obviously, I don't understand really how to make a bridge, but because they follow those limitations, they're able to have probably millions, if not billions of people cross that bridge. There's probably thousands of people on it right now. So limitation isn't something negative. It's something which helps us create feats in our life and make huge, huge, huge achievements. And that's really what Saturn is capable of helping us with if we let it. And so my advice, understand your Saturn, start to recognize how it's played out and how we've maybe avoided that, because we tend to want to avoid the energy of heavy responsibility and the energy of limitation. It's kind of, we avoid it a little bit. So notice where that's played out in your life, and then start to feel into, if you're someone who resonates with energy and feeling energy, the frequency of Saturn and its presence in your life. Because during your Saturn return, there's going to be these moments that's like, this is a Saturn lesson. It's happening right now. And if you're tuned into the frequency of your particular Saturn and the frequency of that elder stern teacher energy, you'll realize, oh, I'm just going about my life and my plans. And oh, here it is, a Saturn lesson has appeared. And so if we don't have that perspective, we can say, oh, this is messing up my plans. Why is this happening? And we can really get in the victim thing. But Saturn sees a bigger picture than what we see. So we might be attached to things happening like, oh, this is supposed to happen today, or this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And then these other responsibilities come from different areas of our life, particularly the area of life of the house where we have our Saturn, so our house in our birth chart. And so my advice is to drop everything and step up to Saturn and realize that Saturn sees a much bigger picture and has a much deeper wisdom about like what is actually best for us than our conscious mind thinks is best for us in that moment. So that's my advice. And for other people who, there's something special going on with this current Saturn return. And that is that many people with Saturn in Aquarius have their North Node in Capricorn. Okay, so Saturn and the North Node, Saturn spends 2.5 years in a sign. The North Node spends 18 months in a sign. So there's this overlap. And many people who are having their Saturn return, Saturn in Aquarius, also have their North Node in Capricorn, just like Amy. Now, this is really significant because Saturn is the ruler of your North Node. So since Saturn rules Capricorn, your North Node is in Capricorn. That means Saturn is the ruler of your North Node. So your Saturn return has something different about it than my Saturn return held, which is that it's directly connected to your North Node. So this Saturn return initiation and every lesson that's going to come, it's going to click you right into the trajectory of that North Node. So I love that. I love that for y'all generation.
Yeah, I don't know from memory which house Saturn is in my chart. We've got a reading coming up soon, just before my 30th birthday, which I'm super excited about. So
yes, I'm so excited too.
Dive in, because this year, especially like since my Saturn return began, has just been like shedding of skins every like week, basically. Even stuff that I've written, or if I'm thinking of things that have happened like 2 months ago, I'm like, I'm not even this person anymore. It's like happening really, really quickly, and lots of lessons, but also lots of growth so far, which has been really cool.
Yeah. I feel that when the day that Saturn leaves that sign, it's really like being a different person. Like that's really how it felt for me. I was like, wow. And it's a slow transit, right? Like it takes years for it to really complete. And when it's complete, it's like, wow, I'm out of the initiation portal, like I'm out of the tunnel. And it's a very precious time that I'm like super, super fond of. I would not be who I am, where I am, having this business or anything if it wasn't for the various things that I experienced in my Saturn return. Some of them seem, you would think, are totally unrelated to the changes that I've made in my life, but it all is like this perfect fated thing. You know, my view of transits and challenging transits with astrology astrology is that everything is happening for us. So it's letting us know if it wouldn't be happening if there wasn't something that needed to change in some way that we're being called to grow. And it's really, yeah, like seeing it as like a rite of passage, and this like sacred initiation is the best way. And just realizing Saturn might mess up your short-term plans, but it's for your longer term destiny, truly is, and who you came here to become. And that's what it's all about, right? Like we're all here to become, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Cosmic Sky Daddy's got bigger plans for all of us.
Absolutely.
I love it. So, something that I learned about yesterday, just in time for this episode, is this thing called the midheaven. Literally didn't know what it was like 24 hours ago, but I found out that your midheaven, you can correct me if I'm totally like just messing this up, but is to do with your work and like the way you like to express in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the midheaven, also known as the MC, is one of the 4 cardinal points in astrology. So the really common one, which this is so funny that this is the one everyone knows about, is the ascendant or the rising sign. So when you look at a chart, it's called the AC. That's the ascendant. It's funny that that's the one that is most known because the ascendant is about our appearance. It's like how we take up space as a physical body. So there's not only the ascendant or the AC, there's also the IC, which is at the bottom of the chart. There's the DC, which is exactly opposite of the ascendant, the AC, and then there's the MC at the top. The MC stands for medium quali, but it's also known as the midheaven. So each of these points is equally important, but of course the ascendant gets all the glory, and like everyone knows what that is, which is just so funny because it's about appearance. So it's just very astrology like humor going on for me, but I just think that's really funny. But all of them are just as important. And so the AC or ascendant, it's our appearance, us taking up space as a physical body. Then the IC, which is at the very bottom of the chart, that is talking about our roots, our lineage, our past, perhaps how our parents raised us, and things about this, like where we are coming from. The DC, which is the descendant, it's exactly opposite of the ascendant and the rising sign. That's the archetype of the other, the partner, and the mirror. So that's also super, super important. Hardly anyone knows about that. And then the MC is at the top of the chart. So the MC is actually a synthesis of our expressions of the previous 3. So the MC is this point of the top of the chart, which is the most public realm of the chart. So it's letting us know how we're wired to be perceived by the public, specifically when we're operating in our profession. And it's like an ascendant, as in this is an impression we give other people, but specifically when we're operating in our profession. So it's talking about how people perceive us when we're doing our thing, when we're running our businesses, and when we're really in our like soul purpose work specifically. I feel like that's where it really, really blossoms. So understanding this can let us know it's like, oh, this is who I came here to be when it comes to doing my thing in my own empire, creating my business, or whatever it is that is our true professional path. So I really see it as our life's work with a capital W. That's how I really resonate with it, because there's another house in the chart, which is the 6th house, which rules jobs. So we all have jobs along the way, but I believe the MC, the 10th house, and the top of the chart is about our life's work, like with a capital W. And it can let us know how we're wired to be recognized. So as in also like what people would say about us, you know, how people see us, what archetype we represent to them. And we might not even be aware of it. So it's so cool to tap into the MC. It's similar to how we learn our ascendant. It's like, oh, whoa, MC,
Yeah.
same thing.
What's your MC?
Mine is Aries, and it's in the 9th house. So that was really helpful for me starting my business, because Aries is the warrior, and I don't have any planets in Aries. So that's not something that I felt like was a part of my personality, because the MC is not necessarily describing our personality, but it's like when I come into this space of being now in a role of running my business and being totally new to online business. When I started, I was like, oh, well, I'm here to be this warrior. So I'm going to be very open about all the things that I believe in, the causes and values that I have. And I know that my soul aligned clients resonate with me being bold, because that's what Aries is. Aries is bold as fuck. And I actually have always had a lot of like, I was going to say envy, but it's not that. But I have said multiple times that if I could choose my sign in a future lifetime, I would choose to be an Aries, because I just don't have that energy. And I'm not someone who likes to like jump out of planes and stuff like that. But like, I know that my soul wants to experience that in some lifetime. And so then, oh, it's my MC in Aries. And so what that means is what people recognize in my energy is they recognize a bit of a fighter, a bit of someone who would like, you know, I fought to get here. And that's totally my story as well. So knowing that people recognize me as that, it's like we want to leverage that more. Like we want to highlight that more. And that helped me in times where it's like, man, am I really going to post about like Black Lives Matter like this? Or am I really going to do this live and talk about racism? And I was like, I'm an Aries MC. That's what I'm here to do. And my soul aligned clients will resonate with that. And anyone who doesn't, like, they're just not meant to be in my world like that. So it's, astrology is such a permission slip. And I know people can worry about feeling limited and boxed in by it, but it really is just a reflection of you. And it's actually a communication from your own higher self. So another analogy that I like for working with the chart is we can't pluck our eyebrows without a mirror. Okay, we can't see ourselves properly. So that's kind of what I see with the birth chart. It helps us to see things and understand. And it's just like, oh, how can I argue with my Aries MC? You know, anytime that I'm like, oh, this is going to rub people the wrong way, or people aren't going to like this, or it's going to be too bold. It's like, how can I argue with my Aries MC? It is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Like astrology and the pieces that I know of it have helped me just to reflect on certain things in my business. Like my rising sign is Virgo. And so a lot of people really like project that energy, or like they project that impression of me. And so here and there, I'm sort of just like, guys, I'm actually not that like perfect and organized. Actually, like not that structured and regimented. And I found out this midhaven, it's midhaven, right? I was calling it midheaven, lol.
Yeah, I feel like they're both right.
Yeah, mine is Gemini from what I could look up. And I'm
Love
like, oh,
it.
that's interesting to me because I don't think I have anything else in Gemini to my knowledge.
That's perfect for podcasting because Gemini is like the wordsmith energy, the bard type energy, and it's connected with social media and specifically using your words. So like so many Geminis, so many of the most world famous rappers and poets are Geminis, like so many, like both Biggie and Tupac, you know how they have a rivalry? They're both Geminis, of course. Lauryn Hill's a Gemini, Andre 3000, Kanye West is a Gemini, Bob Dylan is a Gemini, Walt Whitman, Allen Ginsberg, like some of the most famous wordsmiths ever. So just looking at you with like the microphone next to you right now, it's just like, of course you're a Gemini MC. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I looked at like perfect careers for a Gemini MC, and the list, I was like multiple of those things on the list, like podcast host, influencer, content creator, writer, teacher. I was like, yes, I'm on track. Awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
So cool. So that I guess that's a really good one for people to look up if they are business owners and they want to get an understanding of like what their sort of laser focused mission is, what their gifts are, how people really like see them and project them.
Yep. And then when we understand, okay, I'm already emanating this energy. So if I try and stifle it because I'm afraid of that much power, or that's, I have different ideas about what I should be, then we're actually killing our magnetism. Where when we realize, oh, it's going to resonate with something like with just as you shared and same with me, where we don't have planets in those signs. So it's like, oh, Aries energy. Oh, I don't have any of that. And then realize, oh, okay, this is what my soul came here to stand as in my profession. So then leveraging that more really helped me to be more fearless and brave with what I share. And that's just worked out really amazingly for me, where I was so frightened and terrified of opening certain boxes in terms of like what I was saying and sharing in my content with like my values and beliefs and things like that. And another thing that is similar, same, but different, is working with our rising sign for branding as well, because our rising sign it is also how people perceive us, but it's in absolutely every area of life. So our rising sign really reminds me of that saying that our energy introduces us before our words do. So the rising sign is this energy which we're constantly emanating at. We're constantly emanating and broadcasting this energy. Our MC, people that are our friends that don't see us in our business, they might not actually see us as our MC energy. Whereas people that are in our audience, they really would see our MC energy. But the ascendant energy is always, always present. Like our rising sign energy, it's just emanating from us. So my rising sign is Leo, and I have no planets in Leo, and I actually have my sun and Venus is the opposite of my rising in Aquarius. So Aquarius, we're like loners, we're like weirdos, like we like to like be in the back observing everything. But people think I'm very extroverted and confident, which I love that people think that. I'm so glad people think that. And then using that in business means, okay, like Aries MC, ascendant in Leo, like I can't be afraid of being bold because this is what's already emanating from me. So the more we highlight that, and we can highlight that in as many ways as we want, we can be inspired by that for visual branding, for the words that we're using, words that we use in our copy and our messaging. So for me with the Aries rising, or sorry, the Leo rising, it's like shining our light, taking up space, right? Being radiance. That's Leo is ruled by the sun. So it's just blazing 24/7 at full power, right? And then Aries, this warrior energy. So being like, I'm talking about astrology, but really the basis of that is we are all warriors. We're all on a path of purpose, and it's pretty hardcore. Like, I don't know, I see the world I want to live in is a world where all of us have all these different archetypes in our chart expressed to the healthiest potential. And I believe that makes us superheroes. I believe in a world where we're just walking superheroes. We dress like superheroes, like in our, how every superhero looks different, like dress different, just fully expressing that essence. Like that's the world I'm here for. So I feel like I'm fighting for that, even though I'm just like being a nerdy astrologer. Like that's where the warrior energy comes in. Amazing. So the rising, the MC, it's really interesting to understand that it's almost like they're both vessels. They're vessels for your soul energy. So it might feel different than your personality or how you perceive your personality. But when we understand my soul chose this particular vessel to impact the world through my business or my career, and then my soul chose the rising sign energy to impact the world just simply through my existence. Like we all take up space as a body, and we all impact each other, even people we haven't spoken to.
Yeah, amazing. And on that note of branding, can people, or like, would you recommend people, say you have like a lot of your predominant signs are in water or in one of the other elements, like, is that a good thing to think about in your branding? Because for example, most of my chart is earth signs, and like with my branding, I went to my branding person and I said, I want it to look like a luxurious candle brand that's sexy in the desert, basically.
Yes.
Because that's like, I really resonate with all the earth, in my chart. And so I wanted people to really feel that from my aesthetic.
I love that. I love the candle because that's like the fire, right? Little Leo energy in there with all the earth. So I definitely take into account the rising sign. That's like a first thing I look at when I'm working with a client for branding. And it's funny because what I say to people with Virgo rising is that Virgo rising does really well having, specific kind of templates that are very clean and tidy. Like that's something that I like, where it's almost like a little bit minimal. So not making it too complicated and keeping it clean. And for some people, it's like, nude tones, muted tones. So I feel like that's really in alignment with what you share. And of course you have that like solar Leo energy there as well. Like, I feel like your branding is very like sacral chakra. That's what I resonate with there. Other things to look at is our sun sign, because that is how we shine our light in this world. So our sun is our essence, right, of our personality. Venus is something really interesting to think about. And, there's a lot in astrology. So I recommend, sometimes people get a little bit discouraged when they're first getting, they're like, oh, I can't hold all this information. You don't have to hold all this information. Play with what resonates with you, and it's going to build over time. But Venus is love, beauty, art, and money. So Venus is how we attract and magnetize money into our life. So when we take that into account, we understand this is where I have natural magnetism. So let me leverage that even more. Our North Node energy, like I just live and die by the North Node. So tying that into what we do, like that's helping us. And then it's also that, we're almost weaving in this energy of destiny into our business. So that obviously helps, because when we're in the flow of like what spirit and what our higher self wants us to do, everything is going to be better. Everything's going to be better, more fulfilling, collapsing timelines. So that's also something that I look at. And any planet that you have a resonance with, you can look at that placement as well. So something else, one more thing would be looking at your chart ruler. So the chart ruler is the planet that rules our rising sign. So your chart ruler, Amy, is Mercury. So Mercury is the ruler of Virgo as well as Gemini. So Mercury is the ruler of your whole chart as well as your midheaven. So it's that communication planet, right? Like the messenger archetype. So almost seeing yourself that like you're here to be a messenger. You're here to be a messenger and be, being almost a channel. Like I'm here to just share like don't shoot the messenger. I'm just sharing the message, right? Like I'm sharing the message and I know that you work very intuitively when you do live programs with groups where you're really picking up things from the group and the needs of the group. So seeing yourself that you actually are this messenger archetype, and it's quick, it's agile, it's brilliant, it's connecting the dots. It's like do. For me, it's the sun. So the sun is the ruler of Leo. So everyone's sun sign obviously is important, but when you're a Leo rising, it's your chart ruler as well. So, and everyone's Mercury is important, but when you're Virgo rising or Gemini rising, it's your chart ruler as well. So the way to work with chart rulers, and this is something that might seem a little bit more advanced, but just start with your rising sign one, and that will, I think it's really fun, because connecting with the movements of our chart ruler is a really powerful way to connect with the rhythms of the cosmos. So for me, it's the movements of the sun. For you, it's Mercury. So that includes like Mercury retrogrades and stuff. They actually impact you in a more visceral way than other people. That doesn't mean that they're harder or anything like that. I don't believe like that it's something negative. Though many people see Mercury retrograde as something negative. What it means is, since the rising sign is talking about your physical body and your physical vessel, the movements of your ruler of your rising sign actually impact you like in a more physical, visceral way. So if someone has Venus as they have a Taurus rising or a Libra rising, then Venus is their chart ruler. So the movements of Venus, it's like, if you're into it, if you want to get a little nerdy with it, you can start tracking and noticing where Venus is and what Venus is doing. And then you can look at the placement of it in your chart. So we'd start with, okay, so for Amy, Virgo rising, Mercury is your chart ruler. Then we'd look at, where is Mercury in your chart? What house is it in? What planet is it in? Or what sign is it in? Is it aspecting any planets? And we can just basically keep layering it infinitely. I'm quite complicated with things. I love all the layers and all the details and intricacies. So, you know, anyone who's listening and is like, oh my God, like this sounds so hard. It's like, no, just start with what actually sinks in and just
go to
play.
you
And
for
it's lifelong.
Just go to you for a booking, basically. She's
Oh
been
yeah,
studying
that's
for
my favorite
18
thing.
years.
So fun. I'm so grateful I get to do this work and just nerd out with people and help them make their soul businesses and make mad money doing what they love. Just like, oh, I'm in heaven.
Yeah, well, I know this is like your area of, you know, wisdom and magic, this mystical business, and bringing these concepts sort of out of the like, I don't even know how I want to say it, but almost just out of this part that's like, oh, that's a fun thing to learn, and actually being like, no, like, how do we practically apply this to things like business, money, manifestation? So
Yeah.
if someone is like on a journey of wanting to manifest, whether it's money or like business desires, whatever it is in their life, how can that be linked to astrology? And also, you know, for example, if someone has this recurring pattern going on and they're taking all these courses and they're like, it's not working, what's wrong with me? What would be the empowering move for them with looking at astrology to be like, oh, okay, what's here for me? Because we're all different, right? Some things are going to come easy to some people, and other people, or some of us, are going to have more trials and tribulations, so to speak, in these areas.
Yeah, there's definitely a few places to explore, and it really depends on what area of life that pattern is playing out. So when we're working with areas of life specifically, looking at the house in our chart that rules that area is really important. But if we're talking about, so now I'll share some planets and asteroids we can look at for basically shadow work. So the things where we might have resistance, the origins and roots that may have started as a wound in a past life that end up kind of holding us back. Not that we are impeded from moving forward, but we all do hold ourselves back in different areas of our life at different times. And there's reasons for this that are actually meant to be healed and transformed. So things to look at is our Saturn, which is responsibility, restriction, a sense of heaviness, a sense of, it can bring a sense of anxiety because responsibility is hard, right? Like Saturn is about hard work. So, you know, and then we have Pluto, which is the planet of the archetype of the Lord of the underworld, death, rebirth, and transformation. So that's an area of life where we are basically destined to experience like some level of crisis kind of in that area of life in order to evolve. So once again, it's a force of evolution. Evolution is good, but the path to that can be really hard sometimes. Then we have our South Node, which we talked about. So about past life patterns that we keep choosing. And it's like so ingrained in us because we could have had like 100 lives where we were embodying that energy and we've never developed the opposite side. For example, I'm not saying everyone has 100 lives of their South Node, but we really, it's very ingrained in our soul memory. So there's that. Then there's also Chiron, which is the wounded healer archetype. So that's a karmic wound that also originates in a past life. And it feels more painful than the South Node. So they're both indicating karmic. Pluto and Saturn are also karmic. So Chiron, people say, and I believe that it indicates these particular energies in a lifetime where we had a sudden ending. So for example, many of my clients have Chiron in Leo, which is a wound around shining their light. They may have been someone who shone their light and danced in the forest and just laughed really loud and was like burned at the stake or something like that in a past life. So now those same activities don't feel safe for them, not because they're not capable of that in this lifetime, but because there needs to be a healing in order for them to find that again. So if we're looking at a specific pattern, the first thing I would look at is the house that associates with that pattern. So for myself, I have one of my like patterns that I'm working through is like overwork and overcommitting myself. And, I'm so lucky that I just have an overabundance of people wanting one-on-one sessions with me. And I'm now booking into the end of the year. So I'm so lucky that that's the problem, but there's my own issues of, really bending my boundaries in order to accommodate more people and things like that. So when I look at my house of like my daily workflow, that's the 6th house in astrology. And that is where my Saturn lives. So that's where my Saturn return was. Saturn just feels like this hard ass. That's kind of like this taskmaster energy, like more, more, more. So for me, looking at the area of life first helped me to realize, oh, it's Saturn. That helped. And then, but everything is connected, right? So all of the other placements of my Pluto, my Chiron, and my South Node, they all tell this story. So really seeing it as like, astrology is something where if we let go of needing to have a very clear literal answer and we see it as this adventure of getting to know ourselves and actually increasing intimacy with ourselves, then it's all this kind of never-ending story that keeps unfolding. So all of them together, for me, they really relate to all of the things that I struggle with. And if anyone is like not knowing what houses mean and things like that, I have a free astrology guide. So I'll send the link to Amy, and maybe it can be linked in the show description, where it just has a description of every single house. So I made this guide because the way that I learned astrology is that I looked at my chart and I was decoding it. I was just like, what does this mean? And I would go find it in books, articles, YouTube, and all these different places. So if you have this PDF next to you and you are looking at your chart for the very first time, it will actually help you to like start decoding things. It's not going to give you all the answers, because even after 18 years, I don't even have all the answers. Like, it's a lifelong, beautiful journey. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. It's like a bottomless box of clues about yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I love about it. I'm like, never end.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's mind-blowing. I feel like even people who are quite skeptical of things like this have a reading and then they're like, whoa, like how did they know that about me? I remember I bought Tristan, my husband, a reading, and he was like really blown away. He's definitely more logical when it comes to things, like as men can tend to be, of like, where does this information come from? But he was like, wow,
Yeah.
she knew all this stuff about me. And same with my mom, because my mom is an Aries, but she doesn't act like any other Aries. And so I think she was always a little bit like, why, like, I don't really resonate with that. And I think the first thing that an astrologist ever said to her in a reading was like, you're not a typical Aries, here's why. And like explained all these
Yes.
other reasons. And she was like, wow, oh my goodness, I believe.
I love that so much. And yeah, it's really fun to do readings for people who are skeptical or someone that's like been gifted a reading. Like I find it super fun. And when I have particularly, a lot of my feminine energy clients are somewhat familiar with astrology, and I attract a lot of people who are more advanced with astrology as well, which I love. Like I love that. Like other astrologers come to me for sessions as well, but I also have quite a lot of masculine energy clients, and a lot of the times, maybe half the time, I did a reading for their partner, and then their partner's like, oh, I got to get one for my man, and it's like their first reading and stuff like that, and I'm telling you, tears are flowing when the truths start coming out. It's very beautiful. It's such an honor to deliver the messages to people. Like it's the best thing ever. I'm so happy.
So you're like turning them like to the dark side, like not really
and
that is the dark side, but
like convincing people that don't believe. That's like never where I've spent my time. It's like the messages are the messages, dude. Like this is just your higher self, right?
Totally. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So why do you think incorporating astrology in business is so powerful?
So there was never an option for me to not incorporate astrology in my business, because it had been such a part of my life since I was 14 years old. So I started my business at age 31, and that's a long time of studying astrology, living my life with astrology. And I had no choice but for it to be part of my business because it's part of myself. And so what I saw was that I had a lot of success very quickly. And what I saw is that I was able, through understanding my blueprint, I was able to choose and select strategies, which I was learning for the first time. I was learning strategies and seeing what people are doing, and, entering the space of online business and being like a service provider, a coach, a healer. That type of energy is a whole new world when you haven't been there. And I have a basic understanding, a basic premise that our soul aligned clients will respond to us being the fullest version of ourselves. And a really great way to do that is to understand your astrology, because all of we're all a universe of archetypes. It's not, in my opinion, I'm sure that even I kind of disagree with this on some level, but just being ourself is something that it's kind of hard. It's not that it's hard to be my true essence, but understanding the different archetypes of my own blueprint and seeing that I'm this whole universe. I'm not just me. I'm a whole universe, and that all comprises into creating this expression. And when I start to see them separately and saying, oh, this is how my warrior is wired to express. This is how my goddess is wired to express. This is what the Lord of the Underworld is transforming for me in this lifetime. All of these things put together and creating this beautiful image in this beautiful universe. When every archetype in our universe is expressing to its healthy potential, we are way more magnetic. We're quantum leaping like crazy. We're choosing strategies only that align with us. So it saves so much time, because a strategy that works really great for one person is not necessarily going to work for everyone. And on another level, every strategy works. When our energy is expressing in this authentic way, and we have that baseline understanding that I don't have to be different than who I am, I actually have to be the most of who I am that I can possibly be in the healthiest way, then that's like a Batman signal beaming out into the sky, calling in our clients to us. So I never spent very much time convincing anyone to work with me. I just did my energy, beamed my energy, emanated my energy and what I love and value. And then I'm very, very booked up in advance. And I see it with my clients as well. When they start working with that, they're having their highest revenue months almost 100% of the time, having their highest revenue months ever, and realizing, man, it's so much easier like this. Oh, this is so much fun. I'm receiving this amazing feedback. I'm working less and I'm having a greater revenue and greater sales. And the feedback that I'm getting from people is like mind blowing. And sometimes we don't realize, sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to be our full self. And we kind of have a little bit of this low key limiting belief that, oh, I can't really just fully be who I am and do exactly what I want. It's like, oh, well, try it out. Look at different aspects of your chart and see which ones are not expressing. And I think a really big one is toning down our power, right? So especially for my Leo risings, for my Scorpio risings, for people with intense rising signs, especially for women, and we've been socialized as women to dim our light and not be too much. When you realize you're a Scorpio rising and you've been trying to dim that power because you're scared of scaring people, you don't want to scare or intimidate people, your soulmate clients want that energy. They want, and it's not about fabricating that energy. You already are that energy. So when you're trying to hide it with some kind of different branding of like, oh, it's all pink and perfectly minimal and everything, you know what I mean? Like that's you're kind of dimming your own magnetism, and your soulmate clients get confused. They can't actually fully recognize you unless you're being recognizable as your own energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think on some core level we're like conditioned to think that special is something outside of us, and like we're so used to our own self that we're like, this isn't special, special's over there, and it's like the more that you just tap into like what makes you special and almost like remembering what it is through something like astrology, then people want what you've got. And like you totally glossed over this, but you are like wildly successful, like, and you've done that so quantum so quickly, and you're just in your essence and in your soul's work. And yeah, I mean, you didn't go into it, but Ayesha is successful as fuck, right? You're being modest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And, when I came into starting my business, I knew a lot about astrology and I did not know very much about business. And I became a business coach because what was happening was, another thing is, so there's working with our birth chart. That's a it's a snapshot of our energetic blueprint, and we can continue working with it our entire lives. Then there's working with transits. So transits are where planets are in the sky and what they're activating for us personally. I started my business based on transits. I launched my business based on transits. I knew that 2020, I was not going to have job security based on transits. I didn't predict a pandemic, but I knew that so much was changing. And so my only goal for 2020 was actually just make a website for my readings, because to that point I had just been word of mouth, no social media, no website, nowhere where I was advertising my readings, but every reading led to another, to the point that I was doing readings for strangers all the time, even though it just started as friends, just simply from word of mouth. So then I looked at the transits, looked ahead to 2020, and I saw, oh, shit's going down in 2020. It looks like, for me specifically, what I was activating in my chart, it's like, I'm not going to have job stability. So I need another stream of income. So all I wanted was actually to make a website so that astrology was like my fourth stream of income. I was working 3 jobs at the time. And it ended up that I went into it. I realized like, oh, this same force, which is the planet Uranus, it's a planet of change and disruption. It's transiting through my 10th house of career, life's work, fame, public reputation, and recognition. Uranus brings instability, but it can also bring quantum leaps and sudden changes. And I always tell people, oh, Uranus transiting through your 10th house, it's like Oprah could find your work, like throw seeds out there with no expectation, because anything could happen. So I was like, okay, then I'm gonna go do that. Then my jobs all fell through because of COVID, which I didn't predict. And it was literally like the day that I started my business, because I chose the beginning of Aries season, Aries MC, right? So I chose the beginning of Aries season. It's the beginning of the whole astrological wheel. In the Northern Hemisphere, it's spring. So that's a really great time to start something. And if anyone remembers, around March 20th, 2020, that was like the most intense time of the first lockdown. Like that was when the stock market plummeted, and like it was really quite intense, at least in North America. But I had planned that since the year before. You know what I mean? Like it was all from astrology transits. And then that started, all the other jobs were gone. And I knew that this is what I'm here to do. And when I look at my chart, I could see that there's this boldness trying to play out. There's these placements, there's these things that hadn't been expressed in my life before that, because I have these placements that have to do with the 10th house, which is the house of life's work, career. And I had never been in a career that I cared about. So I could see all this energy, and I just basically went all in and was working with the creme de la creme of different courses, and learning everything I didn't know. And then what I did was, also through observation, I could see, okay, this works for that person, but it doesn't work for that person, because they're totally not, they're just taking strategies like one size fits all, instead of realizing we're all so unique. And then, within 6 months, I was already having 10K months, which is something that was this coveted thing that people are, so many products are geared towards helping people get 10K months, but it wasn't actually from these courses. It was from using my blueprint and then applying strategies that were aligned with that, for all the different reasons that they're aligned with it. So it's really, really fun to work with your astrology, and it just makes everything better. It makes everything more magnetic. It makes your offers more aligned. So there's so much doubt and questioning, and we tend to look outside of ourselves for the answer. And I look at my birth chart like every single day. So I'm looking, that's me looking inside myself is when I look at my birth chart.
Amazing. Yeah. What a powerful strategy. There's nothing like it.
Yep. And yeah, it will be absolutely unique for every single person. Even if someone has the same sun sign, rising sign, and moon sign as you, there's still going to be so much unique energy playing out for them. And then working with the transits in business as well is another layer that we can add on to it, which is, there's certain times where we have greater magnetism, and there's certain transits that activate different things. And there's certain times where it's like, yo, I'm tired. And I can see that these transits are in my house of rest and spiritual pursuit and surrender. So it's like, okay, I'm going to just chill, and really understanding, not that, we don't need it to give us permission, but it is just this divine, undeniable permission slip of what is not, because sometimes we forget that we're co-creating. Okay. Yes, we are powerful creators. I believe we're all God, but we are co-creating with cosmic consciousness and all of each other as well. And the astrological transits that happen, they're impacting us and every other person in the collective, and they're impacting us all differently. So when we take this into account, we realize we have our desires, and we're in a very fast-paced society that's quite distorted when it comes to things like productivity and time. We have this like epidemic of like time scarcity. Like we feel like there's not enough time, scarcity in general, right? Like financial scarcity as well, time, energy scarcity. And when we work with transits, we're clicking right into cosmic rhythm. And when we're in that, it's like your course, the goddess rhythm, right? It's like when we're in a rhythm of this divine energy, it's going to be a lot better. And we're actually going to make a bigger impact, probably with less feeling of force, and definitely with less feeling of force, less feeling of struggle, less feeling of sacrifice. And we really can be very enriched by working with those transits. So something we do in my membership is we work with the moon. So new and full moon, and every new and full moon is different. Okay. So I like to make things complicated. So it's not just like, oh, new moon, we do this, full moon, we do this. It's like everyone has a different blueprint that we can work with them in this very specific way. So I created that container because that's how I work with the moon, of like, how is it impacting my birth chart? Not, you know what I mean? Like, this makes it very specific to what we have a great opportunity to manifest in that particular new moon, or what we have an opportunity to release in that particular full moon. So that's something we can work with. Other things to look at is where the sun is transiting, where Venus, because it's love, beauty, art, and money, is transiting. So, if my business coaching clients are listening, it's like when Venus is transiting through the first house, which is the house of your appearance, or the second house, the house of money, or the 10th house, which is the house of fame and public reputation, I'll be like, what can you sell? What do you got? You got something, you have a workshop that's ready to be like, give a little makeover, because that's a time where we have increased magnetism. I feel the energy of times with certain transits, like the sun, Venus, sometimes Mars, in certain houses, it's kind of like ovulation energy for those who work with their cycles, like that ovulation energy of like, I'm more magnetic right now. Like, I'm gonna go do an Instagram live.
I'm feeling myself today. It's time to go online versus like not getting on video today, feeling like an egg.
Yes. Yes. And it's not to like, live everything from a place of, oh, I should be doing this. But when we realize, oh, I have greater magnetism here for the next few weeks, it's like, how do I want to play with this energy?
Wow. Yeah. I'm really excited for our session because I'm like entering a bit of a period of spaciousness at the moment where I'm like not launching anything for a while. And it's like feels
Mm,
really good, but there's like a part of me that almost feels like itchy as well. Of like, oh,
mm,
what are you gonna do? And I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on for me. Like I have a desire and kind of like a resistance to the desire at the same moment
mm.
in time. So
Yes, I love
we'll
that.
figure that out when I see you.
Mm.
Amazing. Babe, it's been so powerful to talk to you. How can people best start connecting with you and your work?
Thank you so much for having me. It's just such a blast to spend time with you and talk about my favorite things in the world with you. People can connect with me on Instagram. So my handle is at oath.oracle, and that's where I do quite a lot of Instagram lives. I like to go pretty deep with my audience there. And that's where I share my horoscopes and astrological insights and mystic business insights. I have a membership called the Creatrix Moon Coven, and I love that space so much. It's a business switch membership where we do this lunar manifestation practices, and we do a 90-minute group coaching business call every single month as well. So fun, so diverse, totally in love with that space. I offer different types of one-on-one sessions. So the Souls Map reading is a birth chart reading, so just comprehensive. The focus is purpose, power, and potential for absolutely anyone. The Soul Wealth reading is a more business and wealth code focused reading. So it's a very deep dive reading that will also involve strategies. So you'll actually receive strategies that are in alignment with your blueprint. And the Business Oracle session is another session that I offer. It is a business session as well, and it is a psychic insight session where I actually work with your astrological chart, gene keys, as well as human design, but I don't call it a reading because it's more of psychic insight. So that's for someone who's ready to just plug into the mystery and just experience the void and tap into their blueprint in that way and receive those channeled messages. So those are ways to work together. And I just love doing this work. Such an honor to do this work.
Sounds amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. Everyone go follow Ayesha and absorb yourselves in all the vibes. Life changing.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here with you.